There's a man in Indiana, he's been charged with murdering his wife. It's pretty devastating. The twist here is that he just won a Republican primary in that state. Yes, we're talking about Indiana. Let's go to the details about Andrew Wilhoite. Because he was arrested in March on charges of killing Elizabeth Wilhoite, who according to local news reports had recently finished chemotherapy. It gets worse.
Oh, Jesus.
Chemotherapy treatment for breast cancer. Wilhoite reportedly told investigators he hit her with a flower pot during a fight. And the coroner's report said that she died from a blow to the head, which this all matches up. So court documents say that Andrew first lied to detectives who were called to investigate when Nikki went missing on March 25th. After she failed to report to work, a probable cause affidavit filed with the felony murder charge says detectives spoke to Andrew and his children the morning after the murder and found traces of blood in the couple's bedroom. There's children involved. Indiana State Police charged Wilhoite with murder after the body of his wife was found in a creek near their home. She had reportedly filed for divorce after discovering her husband had an affair. Wow. It gets worse. Right there, it did at least. And also he admitted to dumping her body over a nearby bridge. He admitted to this. Here's a picture of this winning candidate in the Republican race here, or one of a few themselves. That's Andrew there.
Republicans literally looked at this picture and thought, winner.
That guy's gonna represent me. He speaks for me. That was enough to stop these 60 people, as you point out, from voting for this guy. So Andrew Wilhoite got those 60 votes during Tuesday's primary to pursue one of 3 open seats on the Clinton Township Board. He was one of 3 candidates for the board on the Republican ballot, which meant that all 3 would win a nomination, but still 60 of them said, you know what, that's my guy. That's the ones. The other 2 received 110 and 106 votes. No one can remove his name from the ballot except for himself. He can say, I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of it, and that's by June 15th, he has that deadline. But also an election official was asked about this, and they did say this: there's no legal reason he can't be a candidate. Under our system, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. If a person is convicted of a felony, then they are no longer eligible to be a candidate and are ineligible to hold office. But still, if he decides to stay on the ballot and does win to some degree, he can be sworn in from jail.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is peak Republican. I mean, we predicted on the show, but we were kidding that like the Republicans are gonna get worse and worse and worse until they're like, oh yeah, I killed a bunch of people. And they're like, oh, that's the guy we want. Kind of literally what happened here. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than killing your wife who's going through chemo because she found out you were cheating on her, and then you smash her head in. And Republicans are like, my dude, okay? Oh, you're abusing women. Ooh, come on in. Okay, now look, we're partly doing hyperbole here because it's a small election. There was only 60 votes and stuff, and they couldn't get his name off the ballot. I get it. At the same time, like, you would think that everybody in the Republican Party, the other guys on the ballot, everybody would be disavowing and saying no, and of course not, and we got to get him off, and convincing him to get. This is going to hurt the Republican brand. You got to take your name off the goddamn ballot, right?
Right.
These days, does it really hurt the Republican brand? I don't know, Kyla.
I mean, like, honestly, Republicans, they know how crappy they are themselves. So I'm not really surprised that they haven't come out in droves to like, admonish this guy. But as for the clerk who was like, we don't know if he's guilty or innocent, even if you don't know, like that case is pretty, crazy to me, like there's like no special exception they can do to get this man off the ballot. But it actually reminds me of a candidate in Virginia. His name is Joe Morrissey. He's like been a representative for such a long time, but he was arrested for having inappropriate relations with one of his interns, like sending texts to like some other state senators and reps in office about this illicit relationship. Went to jail, ran, and still won. And so I'm not really surprised that, they give people who are trying to get in power or already have a little bit of power passes for stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's definitely like crazy to see. I definitely want to send my condolences out to their children because that's something like difficult to have to like experience and go through. But yeah, no, that guy's freaking crazy. And the Republicans, they're also freaking crazy. And yeah, that whole situation is just whoa.
I get the degree to which a certain number of people vote and just see a name and go, oh, that name looks like something. My friend, my brother's name is Charles. Yeah, this saying Candace's name is Charles too. Random voting like that. I wonder I would love to see a study on what percentage of say a vote. This is like what, roughly 300 people, 270, 75 people in this that voted here at least, and he got 60 of that. Close to 300. What percentage of that is normal for, say, just people just to punch a name because they're like, I don't know either of these guys. Let me just punch this one. Because what degree is it of that? Now, of that other percentage who did know who this guy was and did know the background, or maybe his platform appealed to him, who knows? What is he gonna do for you from prison? Like, you want him to work for you, right? Maybe he said something like, oh, I hate the right kind of person that I hate as well, and I live in this small town. Now, how's he gonna do something about it?
Look, the idea that someone voted for him on purpose, knowing this, is not absurd. And so we covered a story of guys wearing shirts, better Russian than a Democrat. And then I was joking, they'd say better murderer than a Democrat. But remember, Kyle Rittenhouse killed a couple of people, went with weapons to Black Lives Matter protests to see if he could be provoked into defending himself, okay? Now, he won the trial where you had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, etc. And to be fair to him, he did say that a guy was chasing him and threw a plastic bag at him. So, I mean, what else were you supposed to do? But they love Rittenhouse. And they love the guy, George Zimmerman, who killed Trayvon Martin. And I mean, it's not at all inconceivable. And to Kyla's point, we just did it on the show the other day. Countless Republicans winning after either being convicted of or charged 8 times, accused 8 times, etc., of beating their wives. No problem. Scott Desjardins, 3 abortions, 1 for his mistress, 2 for his wife. No problem. Reelected handily. No problem. To Congress, not a small election, to Congress, right? And the list goes on. I mean, Roy Moore, he won the Republican primary in Alabama, credibly accused of molesting and sexually assaulting minors. No problem. Better, an abuser, better a domestic abuser, specifically a sexual abuser, and maybe even a murderer than a Democrat. So this is where we are. I mean, this is total and utter madness. This is a kind of an outlier case, but it's not nearly as much of an outlier as you would suspect. And look, I remember when the Republican Party used to claim to be the party of family values. That this is in Indiana. Actually, the best old school example of that is also from Indiana, Mike Pence. Like, Mike Pence is the aw shucks guy. Like, he's not allowed to go to dinner or to any meeting without mother accompanying him. That's his wife. He calls her mother. I remember when they were introducing him in the convention in 2016, they had a friend of his introduce him and Mike's so well known and liked in Indiana. He's got a nickname. We all call him Mike. And I was like, that's not a nickname, that's actually his name, okay? But that was the aw shucks Indiana of the old days of the Republicans, right? Whether they meant it or not, they were trying real hard for family values. Now they're like, oh man, we'll kill you. We'll kill you, okay? And we're like, yeah.
I'm finding it so hard to believe that no one knew what this man did. If he got 60 votes and there were only 300 votes cast, it seems like a pretty small district and everybody knows everybody's business, right? And so I'm just speculating, but it seems like they would know that what this man did. You know?
Look, we don't have the budget to send somebody up there to find the 60 people and interview them, okay? But I really would like to know, because Kyla makes a great point. In small little towns, when there's this small a vote, people usually know. And that's not, in that town, they didn't know that any guy, forget a guy running for office, that any guy killed his wife who was going through chemo and smashed her head in and dumped her in a creek. That wasn't big news in that small town. Kyla, I hadn't even thought of that. Probably everybody in town had heard it. 60 people still voted for him. Wow.
Simple question, would you let him in your house? Since we're talking about,
but they're literally letting him into the government. You wouldn't let him in your house. Of course not, he's a maniac killer, right? That's what it appears, he's confessed to it, right? And they're gonna let him into government. It's just mental.
ridiculous.
All right, thanks for watching this free clip of Old School. Don't forget to become a TYT member today for the rest of the show and for more exclusive content throughout the network. Join now at tyt.com/join.